Kubernetes serverless is 2019 the year of serverless on the desktop? Is 2020 the year of? I mean, there's a lot of buzz around this. There's a part of me that thinks it's a little bit like the buzz around Linux. And when are we going to see the fruition of that? Um,
I think when it comes to Kubernetes, it's a big combination of things, right? So many years as a system administrator, we have always been trying to operate, automate ourselves out of a job, right? You build all these tools, all these scripts, so we can make it easy to leverage all of these systems we have. And in many cases, most people, if you have more than one server, you're in the land of distributed systems, right? Maybe you don't have the right tools to deal with that. But once you start to get to 2, 10, 20, 30 systems, multiple providers, multiple networks, you're in the land of distributed systems. So the thing that's interesting about Kubernetes is that all of that stuff we've been trying to build, all of those workarounds, things like Zookeeper, etcd, console, service discovery, all of those ideas and principles, we've now have a new checkpoint where we turn that into Kubernetes, and all of us that have been working on those tools now have a common place to work. So when we say Kubernetes, I'm really talking about these new set of abstractions that let us do the things that we were doing before, but now we can focus on a higher level. So that's what I kind of mean by that.
yeah, well, that makes sense. And where do you see serverless fit into that? I mean, is serverless going to run on top of Kubernetes inside of someone's infrastructure? Is it always going to be all Lambda all the time? Where do you see the future of serverless going? Are people going to migrate out of distributed systems and be entirely functions as a service?
Yeah, so when you talk about serverless, right? There's functions as a service. This would be your traditional AWS Lambda, right? Here's a snippet of code, maybe a little bit of event-driven programming, meaning I upload a file to S3, it kicks off my function. My function does a bit of logic, maybe writes to a database. So a lot of people are taking that particular pattern, and it's so common that we can now build what we call like these FAS or function as a service. So that's a subset to me of what serverless means. And I think the bigger part of serverless, we've been building up to this kind of since the dawn of the cloud: managed databases, managed authentication services, managed storage services. So once you start to have a managed service where you don't need to spin up the infrastructure first, right? Like 15 years ago, you want to use a database, you install MySQL, you configure it, you get all set up. And then when you're done, then you get to use the database. The serverless mindset is like, yo, I need a database, you manage it, give me the credentials and the URL, and off I go. Now we're trying to move that mindset across every tool and service that we need so we can at least have that option. So I want to be clear here. I don't think the future will be only serverless. There will be no need to tweak and tune, but I think there should be a serverless offering in every category of service that someone wants to use. And then if they need to tweak and tune, they can drop down and run it themselves.
Okay, so in that definition, I mean, the abstractions that Kubernetes is putting on top of the cloud, the interacting with Kubernetes is already interacting with almost a serverless architecture. Is that how you see it, or are you saying that one more layer of abstraction after that?
If you think about what Kubernetes brings to the table, if you're going to give me a fully managed, let's say Google Maps API, I expect it to be highly available. I expect it to be up all the time, highly performant. And I don't envision someone behind the scenes messing around with a bunch of VMs, reacting to every page that goes off. So you probably want a distributed system that makes that managed service a bit easier to manage. So this is where some people would say, if you were to build a serverless platform on your own, let's say you're AWS, of course you build all those Kubernetes-like things underneath, right? Internally at Google, App Engine kind of falls in this category, maybe not for functions, but more for web apps. And we use Borg to do these kind of things. But in the open source community, or you're on-prem, or you want to stitch together your own serverless framework, you don't want to start from just a VM or Linux, right? You probably want to start from all the things that Kubernetes introduces so that we can just focus on the developer experience. And that's what most people are kind of afterwards when we talk about serverless.